Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode number 72 of the Audible Farm Podcast. This week's episode is brought to you by Couchtown Coffee. Couchtown Coffee is roasted right here in Iowa. You can go to their website and check it out, www.couchtowncoffee.com. Find a coffee you like, make an order, and when you do make an order, make sure you tell them Audible Farm sent you, and they will take 20% off of your order. Wow, it's 20% off your order for coffee shipped directly to your house. It's some of my favorite coffee I have ever had, and that's not an exaggeration. This coffee is amazing. I highly suggest everybody check it out, and while you're checking it out, save 20%. Thanks, Couchtown. Make sure you enter the code word this week. The code word this week is Jive. Jive, that is correct. Jive is the code word this week. It will save you 20% on your order, and that's awesome. So make sure you enter the code word Jive to save 20% off your order at www.couchtowncoffee.com. Thanks, Couchtown. Oh, man, the code word this week is Jive. We'll get to that in just a second. I do want to let everybody know that there is a Rockin' Picnic Winter Party 2020 coming up. It is February 22nd, 2020. That is easy to remember. 2/22/2020. It's going to be an awesome show. It is at Rustics in Humboldt, Iowa. 2/22/2020. Show starts at 8. The band is J. Clyde Band. They're awesome. I highly suggest everybody check it out. The Rockin' Picnic summer parties are awesome. I don't expect the winter party to be any different, so check that show out. Oh, man. So we were talking Jive earlier. Why is the code word Jive? Well, I am sitting down with one of the members of Jive for Five, Rockestra, and, actually, Kathy was the first person that ever taught me anything about music. So hats off to Kathy for starting me on this wild ride of what we all know and love as this awesome hobby of music. I really appreciate it. Kathy was the 5th and 6th grade music instructor in Humboldt for quite some time, and it was kind of fun. One of her first couple years in there, I was one of the first classes she taught, and we have a fun time sitting down, reminiscing, talking about what got her into music, how she got good at it. It's no secret, it takes time and practice, so it's just kind of one of those things. We talk about all that kind of stuff. All sorts of good things come out of this podcast. I had a really fun time sitting down talking with Kathy. I want to say thanks straight away to Kathy for taking some time out of her day to sit down with me. I caught her in between a couple of lessons and such, and a couple of meetings she's had. So awesome stuff. I really, really appreciate Kathy, sitting down with me. She's still busy. She's still doing lessons in Fort Dodge. I got links to all that below. We talk about it in the podcast. I hope you guys enjoy this one as much as I did. I sit down with the first person that ever taught me anything about music, Kathy Yoakam. This one's going to be great. Check it out.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
Today, I'm sitting down with Kathy Yoakam. And Kathy, believe it or not, you were the first person ever to teach me anything about music at all. You were my first band instructor in 5th grade, it would have been. And you were slightly new to the area at that time, if I recall correctly.
What year did you come?
Oh,
did you start?
Gosh, now you're asking me these.
Was it like 99 or 2000?
Yeah, it was right around.
Yeah, then you would have been either my first or second class.
Oh, wow. So I'm glad you stuck through it, and my class was not necessarily the easiest class to deal with.
No, you.
Yeah, I will admit to that.
No, I don't think you were bad. I don't really remember, but you're
that's
not one of them that stands out as far as behavior, that's for sure.
Good. Because I'll tell you what, though, like when I first learned music, I didn't really know what was going on. I had no clue anything about notes. My sister played piano growing up, so I knew a little bit about, music a little bit, but she took lessons from, 1st, 2nd grade in piano, so she had plenty of knowledge going up to, in our school, 5th grade was usually the first year they publicly taught instruments, unless you talk about recorder, which I don't know if that counts.
A little bit.
A little bit. All right, so it counts. So maybe, I've had a little bit, but recorder doesn't really count as far as I'm concerned. I learned trumpet with you in the 5th grade band in Humboldt, and it was one of those things where it was really challenging for me at first because I didn't necessarily understand what was, I don't know. I didn't understand how much practice it actually took to get good at doing something, you know?
Right.
And I guess that now that I am a guitar lesson instructor of sorts, I give lessons on the side to people as like a freelance type deal. But I'm actually like realizing that is a common issue as far as learning things.
For a lot of kids, I think it's hard to take the instrument home and practice when parents have these different schedules for work, and then maybe they go to after school care or something like that. It's just really hard to get kids to practice with certain home situations.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense because, I mean, if thinking about it from my perspective, I was like, I'm bad at this trumpet, which is probably one of the loudest instruments you can be bad at. And then I have to sit in my parents' house and bother them with this horrible sounds, you know.
They were beautiful notes.
Well, bless you. That's one of those things I'm also learning about teachers is now that I am doing a little bit of instructing on my own is like how patient you guys actually are with, you know, children or any individual you're teaching,
Right.
you know.
Well, with music, it's just fun to see the students when it clicks and they start getting it. You know, do you remember the first time we had band?
No, probably not. Hit me with it. What's the story?
Oh my goodness. If you picture 70, 80 new kids with their instruments, all of a sudden they're trying to blow notes at the same time, and you know what kind of comes out of that horn. You just walk, as a teacher, you just walk out and go, that was beautiful. You know what I mean? They were getting sound. Anybody walking by might go, oh my gosh,
yeah.
You know, but as a teacher, you're going, okay, they were getting good breath, you know, and they were doing fingerings, maybe not near at the same time as everybody else, but, you know, you look for those positive things.
Oh, yeah, that totally makes sense. Because, I mean, from an outsider's perspective, like you said, it might sound atrocious, but to you knowing that this is the first time these people have ever sat down all together and tried to play something cohesively, like, I bet you have a very, very different grading scale on that where it's like, this is actually really good for you guys, you know, and you don't understand how good it is.
Right. What I should have done, and I thought about it years later, is at the beginning of the year recorded that first class and then have them play it when they're seniors at graduation or something like that.
That would have been brilliant.
I know. You think of these things too late.
Yeah. All right. So I ran out of battery, everybody. My bad. We're going to try this again. So you were talking about like possibly recording the first performance the kids ever did and playing it back for them when they were seniors or something like that, you know. Is there anything else like that you've thought about as far as, you know, how long did you end up teaching? Let me ask you that.
I have a total of 32 years.
Okay.
But I taught 22 here.
Okay. And then so I'm assuming 10 prior to coming here then?
Yes, I taught elementary music K6, and then I taught high school band for half of that time. 9, 12.
Okay, yeah.
So I've done it all.
Yeah, it sounds...
But I landed where I really wanted to be, you know.
All right.
When I got my job here, I never went to work thinking, oh my gosh, I have to go to work. You know what? I get to get up and do music all day.
Yeah.
You know what that's like.
Yeah. I mean...
It's not me playing necessarily, and sometimes I did play with the kids, but, you know, it's just fun all day long.
Yeah.
Then you go home, and then you go do your gigs, and then you do it all over again the next day.
Yeah, and I mean, your job's not just as simple as showing up with 90 kids in a room and just waving a stick, and that's it. Like, you got to do lessons all day long with everybody and the whole 9 yards. And I'm assuming, I'm just going to assume, I'm assuming you know how to play most instruments or all instruments.
Yeah, I know how to play everything.
All right, so you were...
Even strings, I did that in college, like all band directors have to.
Oh, dang.
Right now, Sarah, my daughter, is playing ukulele, and I just bought a tenor ukulele for me, and so I'm giving myself lessons.
That's so fun. That's so fun.
I'll have to ask you about one of the chords because I can't get my finger to do it.
You know, and that's like the weirdest thing ever. If you would have told me when I was in 5th grade taking lessons with you on the trumpet for the very first time and as much trouble as I was having, if I would be like here in the position I am today where I'm actually like sort of good, you know, I actually enjoy playing music and practicing.
Right. Well,
on my
that's
own.
the whole goal of music is to enjoy.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you know, people don't understand that you learn how to do something, you can do that whenever, even when you're older.
Yeah.
I have adult students now that are taking piano lessons from me, and I love it.
That's awesome. As a matter of
They
fact,
always wanted to, so let's go.
that's probably my favorite thing as far as giving lessons. I gave lessons at the guitar shop that was in town here for a while, and like one of my students was like 80-ish-year-old lady that was retired. Her husband had passed away.
She was probably 60. You just don't have, you can't relate to what old is.
Don't do this to me. No, no. She was. I saw that guy sitting out there. Yeah, but this lady was like a little bit older, and her husband had died, and she would go back and forth in the wintertime down south and come back up. And she said, well, when I go down south, there's these people. I go up there and they play in these jam nights, and we just sit there and we watch them. And somebody says, we're playing this song. It's in this key. Go for it. And she wanted to figure out how to do it. So what I had her do was get a hold of one of the guys that played music down there that she knew, and said, just send up a list of songs. We'll teach you a few of these songs in the key that they're doing them in. So at least you have something prepped up and you can go down there and play with them if you want to. I mean, in the course of a year, she was good enough to play whole songs, Right. And it's the most wild thing to think that never had any musical training at all, as an adult. I'm sure that older people, when they were younger, had more musical training in school. It seems like they probably did. I remember seeing pictures of my grandpa with like guitar in school, where it's like they taught guitar in school, and that went away, and now it's starting to come back. But she was one of my best students, and that was one of my favorite things, where I realized, like, oh, anybody at any age can do this. There's no age limit. There's no talent scope. There's no excuses, really. If you want to do it, you're going to go do it. And that was probably one of the most fun lessons I'd ever given. And as far as like opening my eyes to who actually enjoys music and what they do to do that. So, I mean, that was really fun for me. And I mean, my relationship with you is you taught me when I was a lot younger, and now you don't necessarily teach in a public school system. You do private lessons.
Right.
Okay, I'm correct on that one. Where do you do your private lessons at?
I teach at McSweeny School of Performing Arts in Fort Dodge. I have 3-year-olds all the way to, I think my oldest student right now is in their late 40s. But
cool.
Yeah, so I have around 26 students. Jeez. So looking for more. Anything from piano to general. Actually, the little kids, we do a little bit of everything, general music. And it's fun to see these adults come back after they've started lessons, maybe when they were little, and then you kind of drift away. But it's fun when they come back to it. Mm-hmm. And it's fun to work with them.
What do you think, let me ask you this, what do you think the most difficult thing to teach a younger person music-wise is? Because sometimes you said that you don't necessarily just teach them one specific instrument, you teach them general music. Mm-hmm. So what would be like the hardest thing for them to grasp? I mean, I've got something in my mind that I'm guessing, but I want to hear what you think it is.
Just reading the notes.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that happen when you try to play piano or the mallets. We do a lot of, I found this new thing with my little kids. It's color-coded songs.
Okay.
So the little 3-year-olds, it would be like Mary Had a Little Lamb, say, and it'll be in colors. And then I have color coordinated instruments. And when they do that, and then they realize they just played a song, it's really cool.
Oh, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So,
and then we go from that straight over to the piano, where I've marked the same colors, and then they play it on the piano. And we kind of do this loop every lesson and add a little bit more each time. But I think reading notes on the staff, they don't really understand. Mm-hmm. Because by the time you get through 6th grade, you've started learning how to read notes. But then, if you're not in band and you're not in chorus, then you don't learn any more than that. So I think that's a hard thing. Steady beat is huge.
Yeah, that's...
When it's easy, they go fast. When it's hard, it's slow,
Yep.
Trying to keep that going. A lot of times I play with them and keep going. Yep. Don't let them stop and pause. So.
That is actually probably the hardest thing I've found to teach individuals is keeping a steady beat.
Right.
I would definitely think. I mean, even as far as adults that want to learn, it's kind of wild to think that. I mean, I've tried to relay it to people, like try and snap on the beat with me or clap with me on the beat or whatever, and it's kind of weird how many people can't even do that.
Right. I always thought it was odd that, we all, marching band, we're all marching down the street. We all start on the same foot, but by about 6 beats, people are off.
Yeah.
and I don't understand that. So sometimes I wonder, maybe some people have it and some people just don't. It's not in them, maybe. I don't know. It's teachable, but, there's that God-given gift of music.
Yep.
So.
I mean, and I'm talking about like I'm okay at keeping good time and nice rhythm and tempo and keeping it all in this nice little pocket. But then you were talking about natural ability. Well, if you take natural ability and teachability and you combine them and you put it into a drummer, then you're talking tempos and rhythms that are insane that I can't even digest with my brain.
Right.
Because some of those people are doing crazy stuff.
They are.
You playing the drums?
I don't have any drum students right now, but I played along with the kids as they were learning.
Have you ever played a whole kit?
I have a little bit, yes.
Okay.
I don't have one, obviously, but, not so much with the 5th and 6th graders, though, because usually we started that in 7th grade. But, every once in a while I would go play, but not my forte, but that's okay. I know how to teach it.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know enough to teach anybody anything on drums, but I know enough to be able to play along with things and have fun. And that's like the only reason I bought a drum set was pretty much just so I could throw on some headphones and beat some stuff up for a little while.
True.
And it it comes back to you don't have to be the best at something in order to enjoy playing it.
Absolutely, that's true.
Probably like the golden or the silver lining around this gray cloud of music is it took me so long to realize that I didn't have to be the best at something. Like recently I saw something on the internet where it was I want to make art, but I don't want to practice making art. I just want it to be good,
Right.
And there's that whole middle ground. Everybody wants to skip it.
Right. You have to put in the time and the effort.
Yes.
And truthfully, very few make it to the top.
Oh gosh.
And that leaves all the other 99%. We just enjoy it.
Yeah. And
that's okay.
Yeah. It's nothing wrong with just sitting down and enjoying some music.
Right.
In the last 3 or 4 years, I've gotten decent at guitar. I've gotten good enough to be a passably good guitarist, I guess. I'm right in that thick, meaty part of the curve now where it's I know what I'm doing. But as far as people like, I always call it like shredding, playing lots of notes really fast and then sweep picking and doing all sorts of arpeggios and stuff like that. Like I realized how much practice it took to get to as good as I was, and now.
Right.
And then I see these other people doing this other stuff, and I'm like, man, those people must have put in some outrageous amounts of time to get as good as they got, And I think that's something a lot of people don't necessarily wrap their heads around. I know, like I'm going to come back to this a lot. Like when I was younger, I saw how good people were, and I was like, this shouldn't be that hard if this person can do it. Anybody should be able to do it, right? But I never took into account like, oh, this person's 15, 20 years older than I am. This person has that many more years of practice involved than I do, and that was also like going to jam nights. I realized that where you'd start to see some of these older guys up there jam, and it's like, God dang, these guys are good, But it's like, how'd they get so good? Well, they just took the time and practice, and they enjoyed doing what they were doing. And I mean, a lot of that was not comparing yourself to somebody else. Did you ever have any like doubts like that as far as like playing instruments, or were you always like really driven to practice? And
no, I always loved music. I took piano, growing up, and then I went to college. Funny thing that not many people know about me is I was athletic. I was very athletic in high school and in college. I went to college and I didn't know what I wanted to be, a PE coach or a music major. I loved them both equally at that time, but I got my scholarship in music, so I went the scholarship route with music, and I made the right choice, but I still, played softball and basketball at college for a couple of years.
Oh, cool.
So, I still got to do both.
Where'd you go to college at?
Well, I went to Waldorf for 2 years because basically our family, everybody had to go there. And then I transferred to Iowa State.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you said you were good at playing sports and things like that. Like what you said, softball?
I played softball. I was either shortstop or outfielder.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, 1 year at Waldorf, I was the only person that went the whole season without an error.
Oh, cool.
So that was kind of cool.
Sports, just like...
sports. And I played basketball. I was a guard. It was 6-on-6 back then.
Oh yeah, was that the half court?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I fouled out every game. They were not going to get past me. It was funny, but
sounds like me in basketball. I wasn't the best.
And then I ran track. I did the 800 and mile.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. My freshman year in high school, we had a very short-staffed track team. I think there was at Humboldt, I'm being honest, I think there was 13 people on the track team, on the boys' track team. Try and fill out a whole event with that, you end up putting people in events they don't normally go in. So I'm throwing shot put running the 800, you know?
My gosh.
And I was no spring chicken lightweight when I was in high school. So that was one of those deals that an 800, anybody that can run an 800, hats off. It's not easy to sprint for half a mile.
Yeah, no, I don't think they sprint.
No, and I never did very good. I was always one of the people in the back half of the pack, And
I was okay. I would get a medal,
Oh,
but not. I think I only won once. But you're right. There with the rest.
Yeah.
So.
Gosh, that's crazy. I guess I never knew you played sports growing up. I mean.
What? You don't think I look athletic? No, come on.
I didn't say that.
Funny.
But that's that's one of those crazy things though. Is I only know you for the most part as being my instructor when I was younger growing up, and there's so much more to you than just being an elementary school teacher. You've done stuff freelancing on the side,
Right.
playing music in different groups and things like that, mostly with the French horn, I'm assuming.
Right. Almost, everything is plain horn.
All right.
I play in the Fort Dodge Area Symphony.
Cool.
I'm principal horn in that. I'm principal horn in the Carl King Band in Fort Dodge.
Principal horn being first.
That means
first chair.
First chair.
Okay.
All the solos, stuff like that.
Okay. Nice.
I play in my favorite group, Jive for Five.
Yep.
With fellow band directors. We've played together for probably 15 years.
Yeah, that's a really cool one. Whether or not you're going to say it, I'll say it. You guys, Iowa Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Jive for Five.
Actually, I'm not.
No?
Funny thing, I played in a group in Sioux City called Rockestra.
That was the one.
I made it into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with that group.
There you go.
It was the coolest thing. It was a full orchestra and a band.
Okay.
With guitar players, everything. We played rock and roll.
Oh, no way.
So, funny thing with my group, here you have Tim Miller, fantastic trumpet player, Dan Cassidy, trombone, amazing, Paul Bloomquist, and Dave Swaroff. But the horn player gets in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is hilarious.
That is pretty wild. I mean,
I have to tell you, all I have is a little certificate, though. But
I mean, I'll tell you what, it takes a lot to get into the Iowa Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They don't just let anybody in there willy-nilly. A lot of times it has to be something so grandiose that...
It was breaking ground.
Yeah.
It was adding two completely opposite types of music together.
And it's either that or it's longevity. Those are pretty much the two ways you're going to get in there.
Absolutely.
And the longevity is 20 or 25 years or something in the music scene. It's
or more.
It's pretty wild. So, I mean, it's not uncommon to see people that have been in there, but at the same rate, if I was going to get in there, good luck. It's one of those types of deals. It's a crazy thing, and it's quite an honor, honestly. How did all that go down? Did you go to a ceremony, or is there any sort of...
There was a ceremony, but I did not get to go to it. It was kind of just the director of it.
Okay. So there was somebody directing this giant group of people doing all this stuff.
Yes.
How did all that come about? Was it one person's brainchild, or did a handful of you sit down?
John Lubke was a music teacher in Sioux City area, and he'd had this idea for a long time, and then he started piecing things together, getting people, together, and then it kind of went on from that.
That's wild. So did he write all the scores for it and stuff like that?
Well, he did arrangements. We also had there's a lot of music teachers in this group because, if you want high quality, you have to have the ones that have put in the time, like you were talking about.
Yep.
Mostly, maybe all band directors, orchestra, vocal directors. We had singers, everything.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was great fun. But, we put that together, worked hard. I kind of went in at the last minute to play the one rehearsal and the concert, but it was fun. Great fun.
So a lot of this was you practicing on your own, and then one rehearsal and a concert then, for the most part.
Yes.
Oh, that's pretty wild.
Most of the time, though, to be honest, I didn't see the music until I got there.
Yeah, that's another thing, though.
I'm a ringer.
Yeah, like as good as you are at sight reading, that's another thing that blows my mind was the ability to. I mean, like I have to. You were talking about reading notes on a staff, and I have to like stare at it and think about it a lot to get the rhythms out of things. That's always been my hardest thing with reading notes on a staff is picking out the proper rhythm.
Absolutely.
If I can hear it once, usually I can duplicate it with no problem. But if you gave it to me dry and we're just like, look at this and play it the way it's written, it's not always the easiest for me. So that's. I mean, kudos to you for that because that's something I never perfected and got very good at. As I can do it with a guitar, I guess. If you put chord names above lyrics and things like that, I can do it on the fly that way. But I guess maybe that just comes back down to practicing it. Maybe I didn't practice enough of it on a staff level with like a trumpet or something like that. It's pretty crazy to think about that too, though. That like you could go in there with seeing the music beforehand and not practicing with the whole group, and then actually go up and be able to pull it off. I mean, granted, you guys are all some of the best at your craft in the state for doing that. But I've got a tiny little bit of experience doing that where I've got a metal band I'm in called Unity, and that's mostly what we do is we set everything down to a click track, and everybody practices to this click track where it has the tempos and all of the background music that is involved with it that's not your part. So you play along to that, and if everybody plays along to this and has it down pat when we show up, we should be able to play it.
It should work, yes.
Should work. And it usually does work out pretty well, which is pretty awesome. But the first couple times I did that, it was so nerve-wracking. It was like, here's the music, can you practice it in a month and then show up to a rehearsal? And I was like, yeah, I can definitely do that. So we show up to the rehearsal and they're like, all right, we got a show in a month. Do you want to play the show? And it's like, yeah. It's like, all right, we're going to do one more rehearsal before the show. And I'm just sweating bullets like, oh no, this is, I'm so nervous. And I mean, I actually recorded my first show with Unity, and you can see that I don't move like an inch when I'm on stage.
You're just staring at the
music. Yeah, I'm just so intensely involved with what I'm doing. Like, I can't mess this up. I got to think about this so hard. And I mean, there's a couple videos of me playing with Unity later shows where I loosen up a little bit. But does that ring any bells to you? Is that something like, do you ever get nervous when somebody shows you like, okay, sit down here, we're going to play all this sheet music here for the first time for a concert? Do you ever get nervous, or is that something that you've got?
Of course I get nervous. You want to do your best all the time. I guess the only time I get nervous is when you're actually when my husband's in the audience. He makes me nervous for some reason.
Ooh, that's so sweet.
But it's you just do it.
Yeah, I'm sure that's something that you've done enough of that you're probably just pretty used to it by now.
It's like when if my music's really high, that's on horn. It's hard to actually hit the pitches, because it's such a hard instrument and the harmonics are really close. Just hoping you hit that high note and something not dreadful.
Yeah. At least keep it in the same key if you're going to hit something. And that was also probably like, I mean, this is going to be weird for people that have never played a brass wind instrument. But as far as like, you got to purse your lips together and blow through this little tube type mouthpiece, and that was like the hardest thing for me to learn growing up.
Learning how to buzz.
Buzz, yes, buzzing. And then you do you take the mouthpiece out and you do the siren buzz to see how high up you could go and how low you could go and stuff. But then when you start playing notes, if you leave all of your fingers open on a trumpet, you can play like a low C, a G, a high C.
Very good, you remember.
I mean, you can keep going. You can keep going all the way up, and the open notes get closer and closer together because of the way the instrument's built. So, like the higher up I would go, the more difficult time I would have hitting the correct pitch.
Right.
And that's easily understandable for me. I hope everybody else that's listening can kind of understand it. But that was easily the most difficult thing for me, was going up above the middle C. Any higher than that, it was just kind of like, it's getting kind of hairy up in here, like. But, that's another crazy thing, though, I think about was I was talking with somebody in a band. They had a trumpet in their band, and I was talking with them about some of the stuff they were doing. And I was like, man, I remember more of this trumpet stuff than I thought I did. I could still play chromatic scale, C to C, and I can still play all, a concert C scale or concert B flat.
Well, good, because that's what you had to learn in 5th and 6th grade.
That's all I had to learn.
Shoo!
Yeah.
I did my job.
Yes. But, it's kind of wild how much that stuff sticks with you. Do you ever talk to any other students and be like, I can't believe I still remember all this stuff,
Yeah, not very often, but yeah, they'll come back and we'll talk about it. You know, my own kids, I had 6 kids and they were all in music. And yes, I did make them. No, they wanted to for the most part. You know, at their graduations, sometimes they kept all their music from 5th grade until high school. You know, would stack them on the table. You know, we talk about, oh, remember when we played that song? We thought it was so hard, and you know, it's kind of cool.
Yeah. What do you think, as far as being a teacher? What do you think the hardest instrument to teach somebody else is, from your perspective? I
Probably
guess
the horn, French horn.
French horn. Is that just because you got to put
The
your
intervals are so no. The hand isn't what makes it hard. It's the enharmonics are so close together that you can play almost every note in a C scale open by using your buzz.
Oh, wow.
By your lips. So it's hard. It's weird. You either are good at horn or you're not so good.
Yeah.
You know, there's kind of no medium, because you either get it or you don't. You have to have an extremely good ear to be able to play that. I also think oboe and bassoon are hard also.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I remember when I was in school, we had somebody that learned the oboe, and they played the oboe in I think it was like 5th or 6th grade. It was somewhere in there. But the gist was, it was like, we don't necessarily teach these instruments. We can, but if you want to learn it, we'll do it, but we, kind of recommend doing something else. Lucky for this person, they had private lessons before coming into 5th grade, so they already knew what they were doing a little bit.
For the most part, some of those hard instruments that I just talked about, you learn a little bit about them from their music teacher and find out who has a really good ear. And sometimes for those instruments, you have to be a little bit quirky, because it is an odd sound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
You know, it's really cool when you get really good and that blends in with everything, but you know, you have to be kind of quirky and not be afraid to make different sound.
Yeah, I was actually talking recently with somebody in a podcast, Justin Comer, and he's in a band with somebody, and that's like one of the instruments in the band.
Cool.
Is they have a bassoon, and he's like, well, it's kind of hard to mic this thing up because not all the sound comes out. It's not all comes out the top, and it doesn't all come out like the sides or the holes and stuff. So you got to kind of mic it up in weird fashions. He said it was like one of the more difficult ones to mic up usually,
right.
And he said you start stacking some effects on it and things like that, and you get this really goofy sound to come out, and that's more what he was into, is experimental music.
Right.
So I think it would lend itself to that. But you're right in saying that like most horns generally kind of have the same sound, and most, like a saxophone and a clarinet aren't the same, but they're kind of sort of close-ish, but like a bassoon is,
it makes a tone that's the same as, or the same pitches as trombone, baritone. So you kind of sit them by them, and then it kind of blends together.
Oh, that makes sense. Let me ask you this then. This might be a stupid question. Is there any correct or incorrect way to organize a band sitting in front of you? Like, I remember with us, for the most part, it was like clarinets are on the left, and
right.
trumpets are up on the left, and trombones are over on the right, and tubas are up there kind of in the middle on the right, and something like that.
Flutes are in the front.
Yep. Is there any
saxophones behind them, horns in the middle?
I generally get the gist of you want the woodwinds in the front because it probably doesn't carry as well. But is there any rhyme or reason, or was it just somebody set it up that way and every band instructor since then chose it that way?
It's always been that way, with a few variations with different teachers, but you want to build from the bottom, so.
Yeah, and that's just something.
If you're low people, like your trombones and tubas, if they're not good, you don't have that bottom that makes the good tone of the band. So you really work hard from the bottom. Yeah,
and that maybe that's why you want to stick those people kind of closer to the center, so it comes out in the middle. I mean, I guess I always tried to think about like the weirdest stuff like that, like as far as. Like the drums are always in the back. That makes sense because the percussion travels the best. And I assume a lot of it just has to do with how well the sound would travel around, like in an auditorium or any given situation. How about like something like that compared to marching band? So you're marching down the street. Would you do the same organization with like woodwinds in the front, horns in the back, and
For the most part, but
drums?
Different people have had drums in the middle. They have them at the end. We usually had them at the end of the grouping into the band.
That makes sense now. Marching band. Now I'm like flashing back to watching parades as a youngster. You would always hear all the horns and everything go by, and then you'd hear all the drum cadence as they were last passing.
Right.
That actually sounds pretty cool. So I like that. That makes sense. We were talking a little bit about drums earlier. I mean, you and Tim Miller were the two teachers at the
Middle school,
I guess you would call it now. I mean, elementary school through junior high when I was growing up, but it's the same concept. And I always think, like, who wrote, or you weren't necessarily a drum teacher, even though you taught the drums, you knew how to do it, you were very well capable of doing it. But as far as like tri-toms or something like that, like how does somebody go about? I mean, I'm sure it's not much different than learning.
Well, on the music, it shows, low, medium, high. Or if it's a quad, there's four different ones. And then, you had the rhythm. And then sometimes we would teach with circles on the floor.
Oh, okay.
And then, then once they got that, we'd put them on the quad, and because it's little to big, so they knew which ones to hit.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I remember, like, my sister growing up played saxophone, bari sax, and I mean just pretty much anything that anybody put in front of her, because that was how she rolled. But she played like tri-toms and quad toms and things like that. And I remember her practicing, like you said, with paper plates on the floor. Right. And that was how she did it, so she didn't have to be loud and bother people. And
and you can't take the quad or the tri-tom home, so that's how they practice that.
That makes sense. I guess the hardest part would be to transfer like the recoil of the drum itself, as opposed to you're playing on a paper plate on a carpeted floor. It doesn't bounce back.
It doesn't bounce, yeah.
So that might be the hardest part to learn as far as some of that goes. I mean,
usually the people that we put on it, we specifically picked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, I totally get you. That was one of the
maybe you're better.
Yeah, that was one of my sister. She was pretty talented music-wise, so that was something that she always got to do, kind of fun stuff like that. And it wasn't based on the fact that she wasn't good at doing what she currently was doing. It was, we need somebody to do this. Do you want to do this?
Right.
That's kind of. But she also, like I said, had piano teachings growing up and things like that. Here's another question for you. So a lot of people, if you want to learn like drums, going into like 5th and 6th grade and things like that, a lot of times they recommended you learn piano first. Is that literally just to teach people that rhythm that we were talking about earlier?
Well, there's more to playing drums than playing the drum set. And that's a hard concept to tell some parents, so there's reason for it. We need them to be able to do everything, the mallets to the snare drum to the drum set, but we have to make sure that it's really good that they have the experience of reading notes and stuff like that, because unfortunately the music books that we get to teach with, the drummers start like with 8th notes, 16th notes, like a year ahead of everybody else. So if they don't have any experience, they can't keep up.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And that was something else. I always wanted to learn the drums, but at the same rate, like, I mean, in my small-minded kid mind, I was just like, I just want to like beat on the snare drum and be loud, and do all that stuff. And it doesn't seem like it's that hard, but I don't know, when you would show somebody like the music for the drums, like, oh, you guys are playing, like you said, you're playing like 16th notes and stuff like that. And I'm playing trumpet. And
you're playing whole notes.
I'm playing whole notes. And the toughest thing I got is like 2 quarter notes tied together, And like, oh my gosh, I got to switch but not stop playing. And, it is kind of fun to think about that stuff, how everybody's journey is just a little bit different as far as learning music. Is there like an easier path to take to learn music that you would like guess or venture, or is it literally just
you have to put in the time?
Put in the time, yeah. I mean, obviously, like we talked about, there might be some people who are a little bit better or more apt or like gifted to do those kind of things. Do you think that in your family, having like a parent that taught music helped your kids learn music better, or realize that it was more attainable to be that good, or to see your practice capabilities and the fact that like I have to practice too, just like everyone else does. We're like,
me too.
Just for example, like I would go home, my parents don't play instruments. so they don't practice instruments, you know? So like, I just didn't want to do it. It was just something that felt like a bother. It was so far out of the norm for me, even though I'd see my sister playing piano and stuff like that. But like,
in our family, for the most part, since I was a teacher and my kids were in my class, I'd have to stay after later anyway because I was a teacher, so I'd make them practice their instruments, As far as piano, I think all of them took, at least for a while, I was one of them that made them practice, and then they saw the benefits of it and all did well.
Did you teach all your own kids, or were like piano-wise, or did they go somewhere else and learn piano?
I taught a couple of them. I have 6. Most of them took from somebody else because sometimes being the mom, they don't like to listen. It's better to have someone else teach them.
I totally get you. Yeah. Did you ever?
Sometimes I make Tim Miller teach them. Okay, you go to him because I can't deal with you right now.
Yeah, that's funny. And Tim was a good teacher too. He was another person. He was only the second person that ever taught me anything about music too.
Right.
So he
was a trumpet player, and so were you.
Yep. So that was one of those things where you'd sit down with somebody that's their main instrument. Tim's like you; he can play every instrument.
Everything.
So it's one of those deals when you sit down with somebody and it's their main instrument. It's blatantly obvious and how good he is at it. And you're like, oh gosh, I don't know if I'm ever going to get that good. And it was just as inspirational as it was detrimental, where you're just like, look how good this guy is, and then at the same time you're like, God damn, look how good this guy is. You know?
It's kind of funny you were talking about that because I had a horn student for the first time. I think she's a sophomore, but at McSweeny's last night, and she was like, "Oh my gosh," and I was telling her all tricks, do this, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, that worked." Being a specialty instrument, you can tell them all the easier ways to make things work, and that's what's neat about giving kids lessons, and then they go, oh my goodness, you do know what you're talking about.
Do you think it's easier to, as far as guitar playing, there's no right or wrong way to play a lot of things on guitar. A lot of it is just based on how well your fingers bend or how big they are, or can you actually hit these frets, and if not, hit this set instead, and it makes pretty much the same chord and things like that. So there's quote-unquote shortcuts you can take.
Yeah, I call them tricks.
Yes. Is it better to teach someone the long route and then teach them the shortcut, or is it, because I guess... Well,
here's a funny story.
All
okay.
Right.
When I was growing up, I would sneak out of pretty much every class and go to the band room saying I had a lesson, but I really didn't. But anyway, until I got caught. But...
we're talking about taking the shortcuts versus taking the
okay.
The
so
long route.
What I was mental moment. I didn't get beat by anybody in any competition until I went to Iowa State, and then one kid beat me, and I'm like, what the heck,
Yeah.
And I being bold, I went to my teacher and I'm like, basically, what the heck? And he goes, well, you won't listen to me when I tell you how to do things easier. And in my mind, I was thinking, no, I'm going to do it this way because that's the way you're supposed to do it. And then when I got beat by somebody, I'm like, okay, maybe I better start listening. And then I never got beat again. But now why would you work real hard and maybe never get it when... If you do this, it will work, and the goal is to play it right. It doesn't. Nobody cares if you're doing it, the easy way or the hard way. They just want that note. So I do a lot of tricks. I mean, a easier way to do combinations and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I've always struggled with that as far as being a guitar instructor, where it's like, well, this is how you play an A chord. It's 3 fingers. You put them all right next to each other right here. And some people have an issue with that. And it's like, well, there's ways around this. If you got bigger fingers, you can just use 2 fingers. If you can't mush all 3 together next to each other, and me with bigger hands, that's usually what I do. Bad part about that is it doesn't lend you to as much chord switching. So there are downfalls to every shortcut, I would have to imagine. But I always found it difficult whether or not to teach somebody the shortcut right away, or to try to let them go through and figure it out.
Right.
Like,
Well, you want them to learn it and do it correctly, but then when that doesn't work, you give them other options. Now, I'm not saying I use tricks all the time. You do it correctly, but there are circumstances where, a trick works and it's like good. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah, makes sense. Makes total sense.
On horn, there's so many different ways to finger a certain note, and you just have to figure out the combination that works best to hit it correctly.
Yeah, that actually, now that you say that, that was one of the craziest things about a trumpet, was when somebody explained to me how the whole thing was made. And it's like, if you hit the middle one down, you go up a half step, and if you hit the first key down, then you're going up a whole step, and if you hit the back one, you're going up a step and a half. Or you can hit the first two, and it's the same as just the back one, sort of,
Yeah, maybe a little bit out of tune, but in the right circumstance, the combination to get through it, you need to use something different.
Yeah, I mean,
because your fingers can't go that fast or something.
Yeah, so that's I guess I never really thought too much about that. And that's one of the things that I wish I would have stuck with trumpet.
Me too.
Well, I wasn't very good. B, I didn't practice, so that was the reason why I wasn't very good.
But you could have been.
I could have.
You just didn't. It wasn't your thing at that moment.
Exactly.
And now you regret it.
I still have it, and I can still sort of play a little bit. But at the same rate, like it's.
You've moved to the guitar. It's sometimes you start on one thing and then you find your passion somewhere else. But in truth, it's all music.
It is all, yeah, and.
It's not like you didn't take the things you learned from playing trumpet and put it towards guitar, reading reading notes, rhythm.
Yep. I mean, like one of the craziest things when I first started learning guitar, that was what somebody told me. They said, take some of the musical things you learned from trumpet and then just put them into guitar. And I was like, how do you do that? Because the stuff I learned on trumpet involves blowing through a thingy with your mouth, and the trumpet or the guitar is just all fingers and strings, it's like, right. But I never really thought too much about like rhythm, dynamics, and things like that. And that's stuff that I had taken for granted until I started trying to teach people. We talked early in the podcast about how rhythm is one of the toughest things, it seems, for people that have never practiced it to understand.
Right. It all has to fit in this beat.
Yep. And or like if you miss a note, how to get back on the beat, or if
you can't stop, you skip it and go.
Don't stop. That's the
That's hard.
That's the hardest thing to teach somebody is don't stop.
That was hard for me too, because if I would make a mistake, I would want to fix it right away. And when you're playing with a group, you cannot fix. You go.
Bingo. That was the benefit of being in a larger band. Was just like. The other 80 people don't know I messed up and I'm going to stop and play my note right. So
if everybody sat and stopped when they made a mistake, there'd be nobody at the end of me waving my arms and going, oh no.
Oh man, and that was just one of the things. You just gotta keep going, and that was so hard for me to learn at first, but now it's second nature. Where you just keep going. And I mean, that'd be like me saying I've never messed up at a show or something like that. It's BS. I've definitely messed up.
Everybody's, even professionals, the very, very, very best, they make mistakes too.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the funnest thing is recovering from it and realizing that it's possible to recover from it. I've talked with other musicians where it's like, when I play at like jam nights and things like that, where it's a whole bunch of other musicians in the crowd for the most part, it's like 50-50 mix of musicians and people just watching. And then if you like make a mistake, it's always way more nerve-wracking when there's other musicians around, But
True.
But at the same rate,
playing for your peers is hard.
But at the same rate, the thing I also understand after talking to some of these people is they know that happens, so they're more accepting of these mistakes. The other end of that is maybe the person in the crowd that doesn't play music doesn't even know you made a mistake.
Absolutely,
So there could be that situation too. So just keep trucking through it, And I mean, I've always found that when I first started doing improvisation and stuff like that, I would show up and do blues jams and things like that, and I'd start playing blues stuff, and all of a sudden you hit one note that's not in the key, and you're just like, oh gosh, and then you look down. You
just go on to the one that fits right away.
You slide next to it, just keep going, and it's tough to learn. It's a really tough thing to learn as far as I'm trying to put myself in your shoes and be like, how difficult would it be to teach the things that you taught? And in my very minuscule amount of guitar lesson instructing that I've done, easily the hardest thing is rhythm, and just keep going and don't stop. And I think a lot of
But
it,
there is, there is
it.
where you have to, when you get to the end, go back and practice that part that messed you up.
Yes.
I mean, if you keep going back to the beginning, play it again, same mistake, you're not getting better. So there is a point where you have to go back and practice it, but not when you're performing.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
playing with a group, you have to go.
Yes. That was one of my, in Unity, that's what one of the guys in there, Sean, always said that when we all show up to play together, it's a rehearsal, not a practice. You practice on your own time and then rehearse with everybody. And that, that was something I took to heart. And it's like, I'm going to show up prepared to do this and not waste everybody's.
If you want to keep performing in these groups and getting asked for others, you have to be prepared.
Yes. And that's, something I never thought too much about it, because I was always somebody that's like, I don't want to waste anybody's time. So of course I'm going to come prepared, but you start to intermingle with other bands and things like that, and ask other people how things like that go. And it's like, I don't know, like we have 14 songs. We gave this guy a list of all of them. He learned one of them and showed up to practice. It's like, so that would, it's not like you're wasting people's time, but it'd be frustrating, as a band trying to find a new person to come fit in, and they didn't put the time in to learn it. And,
you probably wouldn't get asked back.
More than likely not. But at the same rate, like, it's a completely different dynamic being in like a 4-piece like hobby band than it is to be in like a school band or to be in an orchestra type situation. I'm sure it's not that much different, but sometimes it's when you have so few people sitting around, everyone's got to get along really well because you're the only people there. Where I feel like if you have a giant orchestra of like 80 people, you can have people that don't even like each other and they're on opposite sides of the stage and it doesn't matter,
I mean, when everybody's playing, it's not like you're talking to them or hating them. You just are working together.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, the other thing
you don't even get to talk to them because you've got something in your mouth. You're blowing. You're playing.
Yeah. Plus, the audience doesn't get to see you guys interact before, during, and after your performance.
Right.
Like, I guess a lot of the bar shows that I play, that seems to be a commonplace thing where you get to see the bands before, during, and after. And it's something that there's another thing going to these like little independent shows and things like that. I never really thought too much about that, was the ability, like the accessibility of the musicians, as far as playing bigger shows or playing in a bigger band, like in a symphony or something like that. Is there any sort of that like accessibility to the musicians? Like, are you guys meandering around before the show or after the show? Or,
well, yes. I mean, while we're in intermission, we're, talking in the halls or just going over fingerings or whatever, I mean, you talk to people. You don't talk to everybody.
Yeah.
The ones around you. Usually I just talk to the brass people because we're rude and funny.
But
it's fun.
And that's the other
thing. For
the
most part, I play with people I really enjoy being around.
That's good. I mean,
they have the same mentality as me.
That's one of the things I feel like is the most difficult for any musician. Might not be playing the stuff, but it might be getting along with the people that you're playing stuff with. Yeah. I definitely think it would be more like in a hobby situation like I'm in, it would definitely be a little bit more difficult than, like I said, in a situation like you're in, where you're playing with a whole bunch of other band instructors and things like that.
I don't think I've ever played in something where I didn't like the people around me and things. So
I mean, that's kudos to you. It's not always easy to do that, I guess.
It's not like we were competing against each other. I'm this chair, I play this. I'm not competing, or we're not trying to outdo each other. We're just making music.
Yeah. I mean, and that just comes down to the dynamic of the whole entire thing. Because I mean, if you want to find, like somebody hit me up the other day and they're like, "I'm looking for a drummer. Do you know any?" And it's like, I don't know. I know dozens and dozens of them, but like, are they in your area? Who's willing to drive?
And how much do you get paid? Is it worth their time?
Exactly. Does this person?
Do they like this type of music?
Bingo. And
do they want to play in a dance band, or what do they want to? What is the situation you're going to play?
Yeah, and I mean, when you take it down to the music that you listen to while you're driving around in your car, people are a lot more emotionally attached to their own style of music
Right.
and things like that.
Right.
So you might end up in a situation where it's like this band wants you to play in their band.
Don't really like this
But I don't
music,
really like-
but I want to play.
But I'll do it, So
Right.
so then you might end up in a situation where it's like maybe all of our personalities don't quite fit, and it might cause a rift, might not, might make a new friendship. You never know. But it's
Right.
that's easily one of the most difficult things I've found was literally just traversing the social nature of the music scene.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, like you and I have like completely different spectrums of the music scene that we're
Right.
traveling in, but it's one of those things I've always thought, like, what are the parallels and what are the differences between what you're doing and what I'm doing? And, I guess.
It's all making music.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It all making music. Whether or not somebody wants to hear it, that's another story. 'Cause,
Well, different type people go to your concerts than go to my symphony concerts.
yeah,
You know what I
I'm
mean?
sure you don't have very many long-haired, denim-wearing, back patches with Iron Maiden on them and stuff showing up.
Well, there might be, but
Yeah.
probably not.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think the most fun you've had playing an instrument is? Let me ask you that one. I'm sure you've got
In a group or playing my instrument.
at all. Like it could be like a solo thing where it's like this was the best solo I ever played. It was the most fun thing I did a competition. It could be
Usually for me, it's not the solo part. I'm kind of a team player.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I play solos, but I think the most fun I have playing is either with Jive for Five or when I played in Rockestra. I really loved playing rock and roll because as a French horn player, you don't get to play that kind of music.
Yeah.
And as a horn player, you don't get to play in jazz band. So I played trumpet in jazz band. I mean, so I don't know. Probably playing in Rockestra and Jive for Five were my favorite things to play.
That's awesome. So stepping outside of what you normally had played, which would be like, symphony, big
Symphony,
bands,
king band.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, playing in Rockestra was totally 100% different.
That's awesome. So, like, I guess I never really thought too much about the fact that you play French horn in Rockestra and
I did,
and Jive
because
and in Jive for Five.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
I play French horn for everything.
so that's I guess I never really would have thought that French horn would have fit in a situation like that, but that might,
As Rockestra?
yeah, that might be.
Well, because it was, we had trombones, trumpets, French horns and then we had violins and cellos and the woodwinds.
Mm-hmm.
So we all fit together. We had drummers, we had drum sets, and then we had, different kinds of guitars and
Oh, that's cool.
everything.
Do you know if that's like any of the
Keyboard.
Jive for Five or Rockestra? Do you know if any of that stuff is available to like listen to online anywhere?
Oh yeah,
Or is
you
it-
can look up Rockestra, Sioux City Rockestra, and you can hear we have tons of videos on there.
Cool.
Jive for Five has 3 CDs out.
Cool.
Rockestra has CDs out. Yeah, you can.
I'm assuming they're probably available to purchase online somewhere.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
I'll hunt those down if I can find them. We'll check those out. But this has been a really good, fun conversation. I mean, when we initially went into this, you were concerned that our styles differed and like you didn't know exactly what we were going to talk about for an hour. But believe it or not, we've got 55-ish minutes in here already.
Oh, wow.
So it's one of those things. I just want to say, like, thank you for whether or not you knew it. You kind of started me on this path of learning music, and I only did music pretty much because my parents wanted me to.
Right.
Neither one of them played, so I had nobody else around in my life that wanted to teach me music or give me any sort
Aren't you
of.
glad they made you?
Yeah, actually, 'cause-
I've never ever heard anybody say, "I'm glad I quit music."
that's true.
You know what I mean?
That's brilliant.
I've never heard that.
You know what? It's off topic, but it's sayings like that make me really sit down and rethink the way some things go. Because it's like I said, it's off topic, but I heard somebody on a podcast say the other day, I've never heard somebody say, "I wish I still drank."
Right,
If
no.
they quit drinking, for whatever reason they quit, it's the exact same thing. I never really thought about that. I never really thought that anybody would ever never want to have learned music,
Right. And what people don't realize, think about every situation you have. church, weddings, in your car, funerals, everything has music in it. So is music important in people's lives? Yes, they just may not realize it, but it's really important in life.
I remember recently.
Every event you go to has music. Basketball games have
Yes,
music.
yep, yeah, everything
Football
does.
games, everything.
Yeah, I mean, music is so popular now that it's become like one of the focal points of the Super Bowl. You know, it's like
Exactly.
they're taking an hour out of the center of the game to play a concert for you.
I wish I was there to watch it
Yeah,
too.
it'd be fun. You know, that was another thing I saw online. Like, what would you do if you had like a concert that in the middle they stopped and played a football game?
Well, we do that at football games now.
Oh, yeah, marching.
They play and then band
Okay.
goes out.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
we only get 15 minutes, but maybe I can push for more.
You know, and that's one of the other things, I guess. You got field marching, you've got street marching, you've got pep band, you've got big band, you've got solo performance. There's a lot more
You've got
to
jazz band.
jazz band. There's a lot more to think about when you sit and think about what you're teaching kids how to play. And
What's cool about it is, say, for example, marching band might not be my favorite, but then when we get into concert band, that is your favorite. You know, do you just kind of go through each thing and by the end, everybody's had something that's their favorite.
yeah, oh, it totally makes
That's
sense.
why people are different. You like different things. It's okay.
Yeah, and that actually relays itself to why when kids we went to school with would go to college and play in the college. Some of them played in, the big band. Some of them played in pep band. Some of them did marching band.
And some of them had their own bands like you.
Yeah, and I never really thought too much about like why would somebody want to go to a school and then just play in the pep band? It's like, well, maybe it's because that's what they
it's
like.
fun.
Yeah, and it honestly is some of the most fun you can have playing a horn, just sitting, in the corner of a room and just blaring out some stuff, a low rider or whatever it happens to be, and that was also really fun was the fact, that's probably why you liked Rockestra and Jive for Five so much. And when I would play in school, it's like, we're going to play Chameleon,
Yep.
and Pep Band or whatever it happened to be, Vehicle, all these old 70s and 80s rock tunes. And you're like, oh, this is so much fun to play,
What truthfully, if you ask me what I listen to in my car when I drive, it's either the symphony station or it's the 70s. Because on XM radio, I listen to the 70s music, and I was thinking about it the other day. The reason I think I loved it so much was it was my era, but it actually had real instruments in it.
Yeah.
And that's what I love.
Yeah, and that comes back to, it's all music, but I've kind of drilled this home a few times in the podcast where like I play in a punk band where it's like mostly power chords, which is just like a first, a fifth, and an octave. It's pretty simple stuff for the most part. There's a little bit of intricacies here and there. I play in a metal band, and that's like half power chords and some lead stuff going on, and so it's a little bit more intricate. But God, I forgot where I was going with this. Whatever.
But different types of music.
Oh yeah, so like you can lend yourself to these different styles of music, and
Well, it's variety. Everybody loves variety.
Yes.
If everything was the same every day, or everything you played was the same every day, it would be boring.
yes, and like as far as being able to play like blues and playing punk and playing metal and stuff like that, I'm starting to traverse the different genres of playing the guitar and figure out exactly what goes on in these genres to make them click. But there's still other genres I haven't even touched, like country. Right. You listen to country and you're like, well, this is, oh shoot. You listen to country and you're like, oh, this is easy, and then you actually like look at what they're doing. You're like, that's not easy. They're doing a lot of chicken picking and sliding.
I don't picture you playing country music though, but it might be fun.
I'd love to learn how. Some of those, and that just comes back to it's as good as you get at any instrument, you can still sit next to somebody else that plays
There's
something.
always better people.
Somebody's better at doing something. Maybe not the whole instrument.
That's okay.
But like I said earlier, like I can play blues stuff and improv, but there's people that can't do that, but they can shred like crazy on the guitar, play 64th notes and do all sorts of crazy scales and arpeggios and sweeps. And it's like, I don't know how to do any of that, but this guy doesn't know how to improv somehow, so it's two completely different things. And it took me a while to realize that with the way I view my talent, it might not be the way somebody else views my talent,
True.
So,
I remember the one note I missed. and played 1,000 perfectly, you know what I
Yep,
mean?
yep.
Everybody thinks, oh, she's so good. And you're going, I missed that note. Dang it.
Yes. And it's always tough, like,
I
afterwards.
remember the one thing,
Yep.
you know?
Especially
it's hard.
after the thing is all done and everyone's coming up and congratulating you, say, you did good, and, you know, and all this other stuff. And you're just like, you just want to tell them, like, I suck. But, you know, at the same time, like, they don't understand.
I had a teacher once that, you know, if you didn't feel like you played it well, but other people did, somebody comes to compliment you, you just say thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, you don't go, oh, but I missed this. No, we screwed that up. Nope. Just
Yeah.
plain thank you.
Yep. Just tell them thank you. And I mean,
Because they enjoyed it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have told you that. So just take the compliment and be happy.
bingo. I mean, that can go, that can not only go just for music, that can go to any facet of your life. You know, as far as somebody complimenting you or telling you things about what you're doing. I mean, I've never been one to take compliments very well. I'm not very good at like receiving gifts and things like that. It's just not my thing. I'm not good at it. But I've learned over the years that you do more damage by, like you said, just being like, I
If
suck.
people are happy for what you're doing, whether you realize it or not,
Let them be happy.
let them be happy. Absolutely.
Don't drag them down in the mud with you.
I don't want this gift.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't you compliment me.
Don't be nice to me. What's wrong with you?
Don't like me.
Oh man, this has been a pretty good conversation. We've got an hour in, so I guess, I mean, this might be a good place to stop unless you have something else you want to kind of talk about or anything else you want to plug. Once again, where are you teaching music
I
lessons
teach at McSweeny School of Performing Arts in Fort Dodge, and people can contact me from 3-year-old to 99.
Cool. Yep. If you're 100, take a hike. No,
No,
I'm just kidding.
Well, oh my gosh.
No.
Yeah, anything from general music for the little kids or adults, I guess, but piano to any instrument.
All instruments?
All instruments.
Dang. That's all I got to say
Yeah,
is dang.
you just contact me or McSweeney's, and we can set that up.
Yeah, that's wild. How many students did you say you have?
I think I have 26 right now.
And still looking for more.
Well, yeah, you know, I finished teaching at the middle school. I took early retirement, and I wasn't done teaching, but, you know, the package worked out.
Yeah.
So now I can do something different. I'm building my own studio, my own students and things. So
That's
it's kind of
cool.
I'm doing the same thing, only I'm doing it, you know, just for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes total sense. So that's really cool.
So I can take as many students as I want.
They got a
Because I'm
website?
retired. Yes.
Okay.
McSweeny.com, I think.
Sweet. I'll find it and drop that down in the description section of this podcast for everybody to check out. You know, I highly suggest taking private lessons from anybody.
Right.
It's, you know,
It's very rewarding.
bingo. There's a lot more. I mean, there's nothing wrong with going to school and taking lessons from somebody at school, but when somebody's dividing their time between 100 different people, it's a little.
It's
you
hard.
You get a little bit more
You
individualized.
get a few minutes with each one, but I teach half-hour lessons and I teach hour lessons.
Oh,
So
nice. Oh,
more,
gosh.
more people are going toward the hour because you get more out of it,
Yes. I've found.
get deeper into.
I found with
the
half-hour
lessons.
lessons, once you get started, once the motor starts going, it's like, all right, we got to pack up shop.
I know,
You know?
it goes very, very quickly,
It's
and it's fun.
yeah, it's a rough one, but it's
You're also, the thing about music is you're building relationships also.
yeah. I
So
mean, gosh, that's something I figured out by just doing the podcast and things like that. I never realized how many people actually played music and want to talk about it. You know, it's wild. It really does bring people together. And I mean, like when I was in 5th grade and you know, all the way up through high school, I never would have thought that. I mean, granted, it's, you know, you're a teenager and you're just like meh about everything in the world because that's how teenagers are. But at the same rate, like it really does bring everyone together. You know, you were talking
in every situation in life, music brings people together.
Yeah, you're talking. It's in literally everything you do in life, movies and the whole 9 yards.
Everything.
As a matter of fact, I saw somebody rescored the music to Star Wars and put it into certain clips, so you can watch these clips from Star Wars with the music that's been changed, and it totally changes the way the movie is. If you don't know what the movie is,
You'll have to tell me about that.
I'll have to show it to you afterwards here. But it was like one of those scenes I remember was Darth Vader was talking. He like shows up to talk to one of the generals on the ship or whatever, and Darth Vader is supposed to be really ominous, like he's going to come in here and like be mean to everybody and stuff like that. And they made it like a love song, and so Darth Vader shows up and these two guys are staring into each other's eyes, you know.
Oh
and
my
it's
gosh!
Like, you know, it totally changes the way things go. So you know, music invoking emotion is one of those things
Absolutely.
that you know, don't take your hobby for granted. If you know, somebody probably likes what you're doing, you know, and if they don't, you definitely should, because otherwise,
As long as you enjoy it, it doesn't matter.
bingo. That's a perfect way to leave this conversation. As long as you like it, it doesn't matter.
If it brings you joy, do it.
Absolutely. Kathy, this has been great. Kathy Yoakam, the first person who ever taught me anything about music. So,
Oh my gosh.
So I appreciate it. You got me started
Thank
on this
you.
journey. I'll drop links and stuff down below. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks for doing.
Thank you.
Yep. What a great way to end the episode. As long as you like it, go ahead and do it. That's, you know, music is one of those things that if you have it as a hobby, whether you make money at it, you don't make money at it, you just like doing it by yourself, with others, in a band, in the basement, in the garage, on the stage, at bars, you know, wherever. It's amazing. It's tons of fun. And this was a great episode with somebody who has, well, quite honestly, been a lifelong teacher of music, and she's got her head in the right spot for teaching music. Positivity is definitely there, the optimism, and it's one of those things that not everybody can be a teacher. I'm learning that as I instruct people through guitar. It's not always easy. I bounced a couple ideas off her in this lesson, and maybe if anybody else is a guitar instructor, you can draw some things out of this lesson or out of this podcast as well. You know, and it's kind of fun to sit down and talk with somebody that taught you so much about music that they don't. I think it kind of surprised her that I still remembered some of the fingerings for the trumpet and things like that. So it's kind of fun to realize that, 15, 20 years later, you still remember some of this stuff and the things that people taught you and the effect they had on your life. Might not have known it then, but I know it now that got me started on this fun path that I have, as long as, as far as playing music goes, with the guitar and on stage. And, I like to dabble around with some other instruments here and there. Like I mentioned in the podcast, I have a drum set. I'm not good at it, but I like to play it. It's fun, and that's literally what it comes down to, is just having fun doing what you're doing, and all the rest will fall in place as it should. And it's pretty awesome. I got to sit down and talk with Kathy on this episode. I believe this is the first time I have had a parent and child both on the podcast. So I actually did have Sarah Baldus was episode number 43, and Sarah is Kathy's daughter. And, that's kind of fun to have a parent and their child both be on here. Kathy talked a little bit about how she, wanted all of her children to learn music and things like that, so she kind of helped them along that path. And if you liked this one, I highly suggest listening to the episode with her daughter. It's not a whole lot different, because Sarah also did go into teaching for quite a while, and then went into the private end of teaching, and still does private lessons. Both of them have very full plates as far as giving private lessons. And it's wild to think that there's people out there that know how to play literally every instrument. So, it's just kind of cool. I want to say thanks once again to Kathy for taking some time out of her day. I caught her right in the middle of her day, and I really appreciate her, taking some time out and talking to me. I know she was nervous about this, but I was just as nervous. I tried my best not to let on. It's kind of weird sitting down with somebody that taught you this much about music, or got you started on this. I went a little nostalgic in some parts of this podcast, and it's really fun. I had a really great time. Thanks, Kathy. I really appreciate it. Thank you for sitting down and talking with me. I also want to say thanks to Couchtown Coffee, sponsoring us every single week. It's been amazing. It's the best coffee I've had in a long time. It's easily one of my favorite coffees. That's not an exaggeration, even in the slightest bit. It is so good. Check it out, www.couchtowncoffee.com. Enter that code word this week, Jive, when you make an order. Save 20%. How can you beat that? It's unbeatable. Hey, while you're also checking things out, I want to let everybody know once again that Rockin' Picnic Winter Party is coming up. It is February 22nd, 2020. It starts at 8 o'clock. It is free. Free. I don't know if I can say that enough. It is free, ladies and gentlemen. Why would you not want to go to this? It's amazing. It's in Humboldt, Iowa at Rustics, 8 o'clock, 2/22/2020. J. Clyde Band's going to be there. J. Clyde Band. Love it. It's great stuff. It's a band full of just amazing musicians. I love it. You guys got to check them out live. They've got a YouTube channel with some music videos and stuff. Check that out too while you're at it. J. Clyde Band. It's going to be a fun one. 2/22/2020. Check it out. Hey, while you're also checking things out on the internet, go to www.audiblefarm.com. You can find all the Audible Farm stuff there. Links to where you can listen, watch, subscribe, rate, review, poke, message, email, fax. I might be going a little overboard, but yeah, you get the picture. Everything's there. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all of it. Places where we host the podcast, places where you can listen. You can listen directly from the website. So if you stumbled upon this episode somehow and you're like, I don't know how to ever find this podcast again, just go to audiblefarm.com. All the stuff's right there. You can listen right from the website. So it's super easy. Check it out. Oh, man. Oh, this is a good one. This was a really good episode. I had tons of fun sitting down talking with Kathy. I want to say thanks once again to Kathy. Thank you guys for listening. Wouldn't be a podcast without people listening. So really appreciate you guys joining me on this fun adventure. 72 episodes in. Holy cow. I don't know. I guess I never thought I would get this far with it, but I don't know. I'm just going to keep going. It's fun. There's so many people around that are doing things that are entertaining, artistic, music-wise, and of value to their community. So I'm just going to sit down and talk with as many people as I can. Hope you guys enjoy listening to next week's episode. It's going to be just as good as this one, I promise. So let's keep the ball rolling. Word of mouth works great when you want to share things. Otherwise, share it on social media at Audible Farm everywhere. I really appreciate you guys listening every single week. Oh yeah, hey, tune into the Regional Rock Hour on 92.1, and you might hear a familiar voice this week. I'm going to be on the radio tomorrow, so check out the Regional Rock Hour 92.1. Anybody in Northern Iowa, it's going to be a great show. I'll check you guys all here next week. Peace.